What's up, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Automatic Patient Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. With me, as usual, Dr. Dan Nelson. What is up, Dan? How are you doing, dog?
So good, man. Just coming off the holidays, it's you have a little bit of the holiday hangover, and that's starting to
Right?
subside. So I'm getting back into the groove of things.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm here in my home office today, usually in the office, but yeah, I like my. It seems like I'm like after the holidays and the time we took off, I like hanging out in my home office on Fridays. So, dude, I'm pumped for this today's episode. We're gonna be talking about managing people and really how to uh, operationalize managing people in a positive, fun way. you know, so it's a topic that I think every dentist needs to understand and practice owner. And I think we looked at what online on like all the like dental nachos and all the Facebook groups, and that seemed
Yeah,
to be one of
yeah,
the topics.
yeah, and it was interesting. Like I was listening to the Dennis Money Show. Shout out to our friends over at the Dental
Yes.
Advisors, Matt Mulcock, Ryan Isaac. And they did a poll on their Facebook page that was like, I think the question was is what do you wish they would have taught you in dental school that they didn't? And as they were going through the comments on that, it was almost universally leadership. Like
Hmm.
leadership. And it wasn't always directly. It didn't say leadership, but it pertained to leadership. And then,
Yeah.
like you said, I was perusing dental nachos, and there was Paul had put a question on there that was it's very similar in nature to the same poll question, and it came back as answer after answer after answer was people managing people.
Hmm.
I wish we knew how to manage people better. What's the source of most of your problems? It's people problems. And so it was, and as you and I got talking, you're like, bro, my brother Justin is the Grandmaster Flash of managing people. He loves it like a fat kid loves sugar. He's like, so yeah, I think this is going to be a valuable episode for people that the struggle bus is full on this. A lot of people are
Yes.
on it, it's a fast moving bus, and we need to get some people off it. So I think we need to jump into this topic and really talk about the concept of people management, employee management.
Yeah.
I think we need to dive in on understanding what the concept of the right seats, right people is, the people analyzer,
Yes.
how core values, the interplay of hiring, firing, and evaluations via core values. And I'm pumped to hear Justin's take on this stuff, where he's got a lot of insight, expertise here. So this should be cool.
Awesome, Dan. Yes, it is cool. Justin, welcome to the show. Justin is our chief operating officer at Boom Cloud and also my twin brother. We are literally opposites. We're mirror image twins, Dan, if you didn't know that. And that's a real thing. 25% of twins are mirror image twins. So, to give you context on what that means, I'm an extrovert, he's an introvert.
Yep.
I'm right handed, he's left handed.
Right.
I'm handsome, he's a little bit ugly.
Oh
And
man, you went there. I was waiting.
you like that?
So
He's
which one's smart and which one's dumb? That's what I
I'm smart, he's dumb, and I'm
yeah,
better at the guitar, and
I'm mediocre at the guitar.
he's
Yeah.
mediocre at the guitar.
And Justin has all boys, I have all girls. So literally a mirror image
That's
twins.
crazy.
We think very similarly. He's a great business partner of mine. We've been operating. He operated the dental lab with me before Boom Cloud, and now he operates Boom Cloud with me. We've learned a lot. People, yes, throughout the years of Boom Cloud, people is they've always been a problem, and we've uh, or let me rephrase that. Managing people the right way has been the problem. We've learned a lot over the last few years. Um, and Justin has been a key person to help me just optimize that and continue optimizing. Because as you know, Dan, you can't get it 100% perfect. I wish you could, but every quarter we learn something new. We analyze it and try to adopt. So Justin, walk us through like before we started recording the podcast. You've read the book EOS how many times?
So I've read Traction.
Traction. Sorry, it's the
Okay.
EOS
I've
methodology.
I've read Traction 14 times.
which is an operating system book that practice owners should be reading. You've read The Ideal Team Player, which is a call it a core value book, right, for hiring people.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, it's a core value book. And the reason why I went into the ideal team player, traction is wonderful. I love traction. Uh, Patrick Lencioni, the author of the ideal team player, goes a little bit deeper into finding the right people. So I started researching that. I've read his whole library. If you haven't read any of his stuff, like go buy all of his stuff right now. His stuff is magnificent.
Spot on, yeah.
The Ideal Team Player is probably one of my most useful books. I tell Jordan all the time, hiring is our most important duty at BoomCloud because if we get the wrong people in here, it makes it rather painful
Yeah,
for me and him
it
to
does.
run a company, right?
And that translates over to practices as well.
Yeah.
You get someone outside of your core values and that
Mhm.
doesn't share your vision or
That's right.
lacks the capacity to understand your vision. It's an instant nightmare. You have an instant Terrell Owens in the locker room.
Yes, it's very true, and we've learned the hard way several times, which I think
We have.
but
It's great. I mean, you learn from your mistakes, right?
yep. Well, at least
But
you should try to, right?
as we've gone through this pain of managing people, um, I obviously took it upon myself to research heavily on what to do about it because it it caused a lot of problems. And researching the book, The Ideal Team Player, it kind of painted and it gave me a methodology to stand upon in a framework. Um, which most people don't have a framework when they're interviewing people. It's just kind of loosey goosey. They're just probably just focus more on skills of that person rather than who they actually are as a human being. Right. That's what I've learned doing this process. Like I tease everyone at the office. The other day I did an interview and one of our business developer rep saw that I was doing an interview and he came by my office and he said, Justin, did you look into his soul? And I said, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Uh, so the whole gist of finding people and finding the right people from the book, The Ideal Team Player, Patrick Lencioni suggests finding people that are humble, finding people that are hungry, and finding people that are smart, right? Smart in the sense of emotional,
Emotional intelligence, right?
right? How
Yeah,
they
and
how
that's
they
the gets it, wants it capacity to do it if you are a
Yes.
Whitman guy, right? So
Yes.
yeah, it's the same idea.
yes,
Very similar.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so it's interesting doing these interviews because most everyone, I'll have I guess you call them I would call them skill set interviews. Other people that do interviews here at BoomCloud, they'll determine if they have the skills to do the job. And then I will meet with them and basically peer into their soul. And because I want to determine if they're humble, if they're hungry, and if they're smart. Because if somebody's not humble, uh, they're arrogant and they're going to be really hard to work with, right? If somebody's not hungry, they're not driven. They're not going to go after Jordan's vision. They're not going to go after the vision of the CEO and chase after that and get stuff done, right? And if somebody is not um, smart with others, they're going to have uh, problems with their team, everyone around them, right? They're gossiping about somebody. That's not emotional intelligence. That's
Yeah.
that's going to cause problems, right? So I tend to, when I'm interviewing people, um, I have a process where I have questions, and they're in the book. It's a great book. but there's questions that you ask to determine if somebody is humble. There's questions to ask to determine if somebody is smart or hungry. And I ask the questions, and I have a guide that I have that helps me kind of watch with their responses to see if they're adhering to that value in their job, in their life, and everything, right? So one of the questions I ask, I typically ask 2 to 3 questions per category, right? Humble, hungry, smart. Um, you know, I like to ask questions uh that get them thinking. So one question is, what was the most embarrassing moment or biggest failure in your career? And I wait and see if they have the humility to actually look at themselves and be like, oh, yeah, you know, I burned down the factory I was working on. I don't know. It could be something, it could be something
Factory.
ridiculous, right?
That's the
Yeah.
worst when they burn down the factory. It's like, oh no.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Okay, thanks for being honest.
And I think the humility component is a fascinating one because it correlates so much with teachable, right? Like so,
Yeah.
and we've had several employees that we've made the mistake of, oh, this person is confident.
Hmm.
And there's
Yeah.
a difference between confidence and arrogance, certainly.
Yes. Big
And
time.
we've hired the confident person and we've hired the arrogant person. And the arrogant person is so frustrating because they're so unteachable, and you can't get any traction moving forward with them to change anything, or because they already know it. They already know it, and they become extremely stubborn in their methodologies and what the way they go about, their job. And if it's not in line with what you're trying to do, and they don't see that, they don't understand the core values and vision of your practice. Yeah, humility is a huge one. And two, Justin, I wanted to talk about a little bit. One of my best friends is an extremely successful mortgage broker. He's
Mhm.
actually retired at 47 years old. He's retired, and he's done extremely well for himself. And he and I got talking one day. He went back to school when he was in his early 40s because he had time and money. And so he's like, I'm going to go back to school. And he decided, like, oh, I'm going to study marriage therapy. If I can't think of a bigger jump than from mortgage broker to marriage, maybe they correlate somehow. I don't
I mean,
know.
it's the household thing.
Yeah, yeah. So we got talking about a study that he was reporting on from grad school that was about ambition, and it's something that cannot be taught. And so they tested to see, can we teach people to grow ambition? Can we
Mm.
instill that in somebody? The answer is no. You cannot instill ambition into somebody. So this idea of wanting someone that's, hungry, that someone that wants to take initiative and move with, paddle the boat with the rest of the people to get to where they want to go. You're not going to all of a sudden like infuse humility into somebody, or infuse, life might knock them down to where they're humble, but
Yep.
ambition is like, that's either there or it isn't. So that
Yeah.
I love that you've already brought up some really important talking points when we're evaluating a new hire or existing hires for that matter.
Yeah, we've used the same questions on existing hires.
Oh
So
yeah.
one, we know, understand how to coach people, our current team. I think that's a useful, the ideal team player is not just for new hires. It's I know, just you've ran some assessments on our existing team, and like the back of your hand,
Yeah.
who needs certain coaching
Yeah.
within our organization.
Yeah. I can, I run an assessment on people here, and I know exactly where their strengths and weaknesses are regarding humility, smart, and
Driven.
hunger, right? I
Yeah.
know exactly where people are at, so we can help coach them up to that level, right? And it's interesting within the system. Uh, there's so you have the ideal team player, which everyone is looking for that. To have a successful business, you have to have ideal team players. But there's people outside of that, just outside of that, or even further outside of that, right? And you mentioned Dan, that if they're not humble, right, but they're hungry and smart, that means that they're a skillful politician, right? So they're going to persuade people because they have the emotional intelligence to do that, and they're driven, right? But if they're lacking humility, right, they'll be a skillful politician.
Yeah, and they're often the worst kind of Terrell Owens, right? Like Terrell Owens wasn't, those are the ones that, especially if they're smarter than the other employees,
Yes.
then it becomes a
Yes.
real problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's archetypes within the book. So obviously the target is the ideal team player. But there's people like the accidental mess maker, causes problems, or the lovable slacker, which
Lovable slacker. That's right. I remember
oh,
that.
we love you so much, but you're such a slacker.
Yeah.
You don't get anything done. You don't know how to execute, but we love you. You're so funny.
Yeah.
Which then defeats the purpose because if somebody can't execute within the organization, if they, for example, if we have rocks or OKRs that somebody is working on and they can't execute, what's the point?
The lovable slacker, by the way, is the easiest person to fire.
It's so easy to find.
Yeah. He's like,
Yes. Yes,
you're
they are,
awesome.
Dan.
We love you as a person. Thanks for being here. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. So, yeah.
So, and I've seen various types. I haven't seen all the types, outside of the ideal team player, but that's besides the point. All I care about is having ideal team players who I can collaborate with, who Jordon can assign things to that need to get done, and they do them right. So yeah, so teasing these using these questions within the book to tease out who they actually are. That's what I've learned. You tease out who they actually are, and try to identify and match up to that the ideal team player values, right? And that's how I've been able to determine if I want somebody inside these walls here. And
Justin,
I'm very
can you speak a bit to, shifting gears a little bit? Can you speak to how that correlates with core values?
Yeah, so I tell Jordon all the time. I said, because we have core values at Boom Cloud. One of them is a team player, right? Um, uh, ours is a team rock star, right? And my theory is if they're a team player, if they're able to work with others and have the emotional intelligence, have the drive and everything, then they're going to start adhering to the other core values that you have in the organization, right?
Yeah.
So if they're a team player, if they're an ideal team player, one of our core values at Boom Cloud is creative psycho, right? If you are an actual team player, you're going to be creative for the team, right? Another one of our core values is um, ownership junkie, right? If you are an ideal team player, that's going to spill into that. You're going to own your role. You're going to own your job. You're going to own your objectives that you have for the company. You're going to own your number, right? Because you are ideal. You're an ideal team player. You have that drive. So it spills over into whatever core values that you have. I know every business is different. They're going to have their own custom core values. But the ideal team player touches on all of them. It's kind of like I kind of see it as like the gateway. If they are an ideal team player and have those three attributes, then they're going to adhere to the other core values within the system, within the business.
Yeah, this is great stuff. And what I love that you're putting it in that framework. I think it's important to note also that, you set your culture of your practice by way of your core values, right? So you've determined like, this is the way we operate here. This is the rules of the game when you work here. And if you are hiring, firing, and evaluating based off your core values, you can have someone that has high aptitude. You can have someone that is, in all respects, looks like a good hire on a multiple fronts, right? You'd say like, yeah, we love this person. They're great. But they lack the adhesion to your core value system. Then what you have is you have someone that is trying to live in a culture or have you have a cultural conflict now, you know,
Yeah.
and those are tough when you have somebody that you feel like is a great employee in a lot of aspects, but just doesn't share the vision, just does not adhere to the core value, maybe one, two, three, all of the core values. Now you have this cultural conflict in your office. And sometimes it's hard to pinpoint, like, why are we struggling so much with this employee who's so good on so many fronts, but just disrupts on so many fronts as well? Like, why are they so
Mm.
disruptive? And so I think that, you know, on top of this, the basis of like, all right, do we have somebody that can operate and do what we need them to do? They are humble enough to be teachable. They're humble enough to take criticism and to learn and to move on. They have a distinct drive to get things accomplished and done, but it's like, but then they're not performing well within the culture. Now you have to look at the core value system and say, all right, this is and this really is why the core values are so important for dentists to establish within their office. I'm shocked at how many offices operate without core values. There's
Oh
one
yeah.
willy, like it's crazy.
It's like herding cats.
Yeah, for real,
That's
dude. Yeah,
insane.
they have, because as an employee. So one of the things I learned in the military, weirdest thing ever. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story about a funny experience I had when I first went to, we'll call it boot camp. It's actually not called boot camp because I was an officer, but we'll call it boot camp. And first day, I show up, and this dude comes up. He's got the gunny sergeant hat, everything, right? Like, and he
Mhm.
starts yelling at me. He's like, "Stand at attention." I'm like, "Okay." I don't. Day one, I'm still in my civilian clothes. I have my bags in my hand. I'm barely out of the car. This dude's running up to me. He's like, "Stand at attention." I'm like, "I'm doing my best." Just like I'm copying every movie I've ever seen of like how to stand at attention, right? And he's like, "Feet together." I'm like, "Okay, I have feet together." And he's like, "Make a V with your feet." Okay. He's like, "Cup your hands." And I'm like, "What the hell's he talking about? Cup your hands." I was like, so I'm like, "What? I don't know what you like. What do you want me to do, man? Like, what am I doing here?" And he's just yelling at me to cup my hands. He spends a good minute and a half yelling at me. He doesn't give any direction other than cup your hands, cup your hands, cup your hands. Well, and I'll tell you guys, to cup your hands, you make your hands like this and you put them against your side. So they go right against your legs, right?
Okay.
I didn't know that. But the point is that there's two clear things that they establish on that first day. One is that you need to be able to understand what they want you to do, right? And the second is you need to understand how to do it, right? So there was two big lessons that they were trying to instill into us in that very moment, and that's what they were. And the military knows that people do well if they have those two basics covered.
Yeah.
And so many times offices that lack core values don't cover those things.
Sure.
Employees don't know what's expected of them, and they don't necessarily know how to do it. And so if there's a lack of cultural definitions by way of core values, you're really going to have employees that struggle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen that over the years as well. And I often tell Justin, I'm like, how do we get more clear on the what and the how? And I'm really good on the what and the vision, right? And where I want the company to go, or the practice to go. If you're operating a practice, it's all universal, you know. And I know lately, Justin, we've been really diving deep on the how
Yeah.
with our team members. I know you've been analyzing that like crazy in great detail, and have created a process just to make sure that when a leader hears my vision and they're taking it down to their team, that the team members, the individual contributors, know exactly what it is and how to do it. I think that's a really good point you brought up, Dan and Justin. I don't know what if you have any comments on that, Just. I know you're
Yeah, I
always
do.
in the thick of this. Yeah.
I did a test here at Boom Cloud last quarter four, um, because I was just unsatisfied with some of the progress. So I did a test across the company, and I built a Google spreadsheet to calculate the completion of our rocks and who's completing them, um, with the percentage rate and all that. And I, I've I'm learning that it's immensely important when you set rocks to help everyone basically break them down um, into sizable chunks so they can get stuff done, right?
Down
Uh,
to like the day, down to the
down to the day, down to, absolutely. So I developed, a process um, because I've been frustrated because we have Jordan's vision, right? We have the CEO's vision, and then the rocks are basically broken down chunks of that vision. And everything, it wasn't aligning right. So I kind of created a process where and I learned this from development,
software development.
software development, right? Because I manage that team too. So we've been setting rocks for our teams, and then I've been helping people break down those rocks into milestones, right? Into subtasks, whatever you want to call it, if you will. But helping them kind of visualize the work that they have for the quarter. So they have their rock, which is their what? What are you going to do this quarter? And then everything broken down is how are you going to do it? Okay, I'm going to call this many people, right, this quarter um, by halfway through the quarter, right? Or whatever the details are. It varies for every single person, but I've learned that it's setting the rocks and then breaking them down. And then each week I've been analyzing them for effectiveness, right? And I analyze all of our rocks on a score of 1 through 5. And I basically analyze if it's in alignment with Jordan's vision, if the writing is crystal clear, if it's being achieved, and the overall impact of the rock. So I've kind of gone in a little bit more detail in with EOS and the rock system of basically aligning Jordan's vision with every single human being in the building, right? And then you can't do that without without core values, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If you have the wrong people in the wrong seats, there's no way you're going to be able to get that alignment. It's going to be really frustrating. And so it's a learning process, right?
Yeah.
But
What do you mean by what do you mean the wrong people in the wrong seats? Can you elaborate a bit? I mean, that's another a couple of books use that concept
Yeah.
when it's talking about people management. Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit, Justin?
Yeah, let's say that. I mean, let's kind of take the image of the lovable slacker, right? Everyone loves this person. He's great, but he actually doesn't do his job, right? He's not, say he's on the customer team, he's attending to clients, and he's not showing up for the client calls, or in dentistry, let's say they didn't go into the operatory to clean their teeth, whatever, you know.
So lovable slacker hygienist is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, right. Um, so people like that, if you can upgrade their skills to improve them, which is possible, right? If they're missing one, core value, you can absolutely upgrade that person. But I have found that it's actually really takes a lot of time, a lot of planning, and a lot of effort to basically upgrade their skills out of the lovable slacker or whatever it may be. Um, it can be done. Like I've been able to do it with some employees here. Here's a story. I had an employee that constantly showed up late, which is a huge pet peeve of mine. Like,
Yeah, it's like if a dental
got a
assistant
job,
showed up late, that disrupts the whole day.
Yeah, totally.
It's a
and
massive issue.
they would constantly be late. Like I'm talking like arriving at 11 o'clock. Like everyone's here at 8, you're getting here at 11 or noon. And what I would do, like I saw it, and I'm like, okay, I need to help this person understand their role here, right? So I met with him every single day. Every time they were late, I'd pull him in my office and say, "What's going on? How can I help you? You have roles and responsibilities here that need to get done, and customers are trying to get a hold of you. Like, how are we going to fix this?" And I was able to help him. It took some time, but I was able to get in the weeds and kind of determine the issue, right? What is the actual issue here? And I was able to kind of reverse engineer that and help him get on track with arriving on time. And I was able to upgrade his skills, and he ended up being just such a wonderful person to work with.
Yeah.
Wonderful person. And it just takes time and focus. When you get people that may not be, the right fit, there is a chance that you can upgrade them and help their skills, but sometimes there's not. And, I've dealt with people that, in a 90-day, in a quarter, in a 90-day time period, I'm just like out now.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, that's
this. I don't have the time and bandwidth to get you to where I need you to be regarding our core values and regarding our operating system. So,
but often just, and for any practice owner listening, Justin just doesn't make these decisions whether to coach somebody up or coach somebody out. Those are the two strategies, right? You can either coach somebody up or coach somebody out, right? Or move them if they're in the wrong seat. Maybe I mean, I know in a tech company, our skills can be, you can move people around. Like, oh, you're not good at customer support, but hey, you may be good at the sales role, right? It's a little bit more flexible. But when it comes to coaching people up or coaching people out, Justin just he doesn't do it by feelings or emotion. Like, he does his assessments and he's like, look, this is going to take X amount of time to coach this person up because the data says they're a lovable slacker, right?
yeah.
Or whatever it may be, right? Or what's one we were looking at where they're smart, but they're not driven and they're not humble. What's that one called?
uh, Smart, not driven.
Is that the skillful politician or the
I can't remember. I think that's
anyways,
I think it's the jackass. I'm
the
not
jackass. Yeah, that's it. Dan, you got it. That's
trying
it.
to remember if that was. I think
Yeah.
that's.
It's the hateable, it's the annoying jackass. That's it. My point is Justin uses data and assessments to understand the how much time and effort is going to take to coach this person up, or do we just coach them out? And I like that phrase, coaching up or coaching out, because we do believe in people, even if people aren't perfect, right? And if you're trying to lead a dental practice, you know this already. People aren't perfect. We know that you can coach people up, but if they're so far off from like the ideal team player, you need to coach them out, right? And what that means is have them understand, that they may not be the right fit, and instead of surprising them, being like, oh, one day you're just fired. Like, you're still coaching them, but you're coaching them out instead of up within their skill sets, right? And I think as leaders of whatever organization, whether it's a dental practice, a software company, a dental lab, whatever, this is universal. This is a universal skill set. No matter what you do, you can apply this, right, to any business. But understanding the process of, do we coach this person up or do we coach this person out? How do we determine that? How do we use the data, these assessments that Justin's talking about that are in the ideal team player book? And I think, Justin, you've also downloaded these assessments and put them into Chat GPT, so you can do like AI assessments, which is
analyze it with AI and all that. Yeah.
yeah, AI can help.
I've yeah, I've determined, like, if they're missing two let's say they're missing humble and smart, but they're hungry, right? That's gonna be a heavy lift for me to
Yeah.
get upgraded to where we need them to be. And then once that like, again, I like to call it like the gateway core value. Once they pass through that, then they can start, learning and adopting the other core values. So if they're missing two values from the ideal team player, it's going to be a heavy lift. Now, if they're missing one but they have two, let's say they're not humble, but they're smart and hungry, I could probably work with that and upgrade their skills if need be, right?
Yeah.
It depends, right? So yeah.
I want to talk about a point that you just brought up, Justin, that I think is very ironic. And it's that you bring an employee in and you talk to them and you discuss, you start talking. The irony is this, is that dentists are taught and programmed to actually be very, very good employee evaluators and should be very adept at hiring and firing because of the whole patient process that we go through. So someone comes into the office and they're there for a very specific reason. Maybe they come in as an emergency, right? We are taught to gather information, to ask all the right questions so we can make a correct evaluation that we call a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And from that diagnosis, we then treatment plan. So we have a plan of action that we intend to take with this person to resolve the issue that they're coming to your office with.
Right.
Very few dentists recognize that it's the exact same process that you take with your employees. So as you have an employee that has a problem, yeah, it's very ironic.
Yeah.
So dentists should be, if they can get over the fear factor, they should be extremely adept at, it's the same process. You don't pull someone in and chew them out. If someone comes in because they've broken their tooth off, I don't bring them in and be like, you idiot, what were you doing? Why did you break that off? You know, how dare you? You know,
Why were you eating that
how much
tap?
money you're going to cost yourself? Like it doesn't, yeah. Like that's the whole mentality all of a sudden shifts when it goes to our employees, definitely with our kids. And
Yes.
you know, so when we're dealing with an employee, the process is identical. You say, okay, what, first of all, we need to identify what the problem is. And I love that you brought that up. What, identify the problem. What is it? You know, and then, you know, let's, once we identify that, let's talk to you. And first of all, see if you can come up with solutions for the problem. What are you doing to make it better? What can you be doing to make it better? And then what can I do to help you to make it better? Right? Because that's really and it's the exact same process we take with patients, but nobody correlates the two together and goes, oh my gosh.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah. As a dentist, I'm extremely trained. I'm trained extremely well and I'm extremely adept at this process. I just don't recognize the correlation and I don't utilize it when I evaluate and talk to my team players that have a problem or an issue. And so the irony I think is overwhelming.
Well, it's funny,
honestly.
It's when you think of that, it's like, oh yeah, that is actually the exact process. It's just instead of teeth and pain, it's it's people and pain.
Yeah, and for some
Right?
reason, we're not scared to tell somebody that they, you know, yeah, you broke your tooth because you know, you're playing on monkey bars and you're 42 years old. You know, don't do that. Like,
That sounds like a real patient story, Dan.
Well, we have so many good we talked about doing the real patient podcast, right? Like,
yes, that would actually
stories from the underground, right? Just the funny stories that we have. Yeah,
I have several from the dental lab days that would
yeah,
surprise.
there's so many good stories. But yeah, you know, I think that we're scared because we see these people every day, you know, and it's that having to face somebody that but if you reprimand somebody, yes, it's going to be awkward. If you come in with the attitude of help you, and you know, and sometimes you have to train them out, like you said. Sometimes it's like you're not. I'm not going to be able to train you up. Like this isn't happening, you know. And so, and I have patients that are that way. That I'm like, you know what? I've tried to train you to be a good patient and it's not working. It's time to dismiss you, you know, and it's not worth the headache. And I love, I'm trying to remember which book it is that talks about the what is it called? The 5 minutes of pain. Oh, dang it. I can't think of what book it is.
Is it the five dysfunctions of a team?
It might be. Yeah. And he talks about like, take that 5 minutes of pain to let someone go that isn't a good fit. You can either have 5 minutes of being uncomfortable when you're letting that person go, or you could have months and years of everybody else being uncomfortable because you've left them there.
Well, and typically, Dan, on that topic, because I've made those mistakes where the 5 minute of pain mistakes early on in my career where I was afraid to maybe fire somebody when they needed to be. As when I was starting Boom Cloud up, I was a poor leader, or let me rephrase it. I was a learning leader, right? I was learning how to deal with people post the dental lab era of my career. And I remember being so nervous to fire people when they needed to be fired because it was causing the whole team pain. And I took my time, and that actually does more damage to the team by waiting. And it may be, maybe they're a bad team player, or they're just not hitting their numbers and helping row in the boat together. That has huge consequences with morale with the team, right? And your team may be like, well, is Jordon really a good leader because he's letting these people do these things that don't fit our culture and our performance values, right? As a company. So as a leader in your dental practice, like, yeah, you have to make those decisions. And I call them bullet to the head decisions. I know that's graphic. Um, but it's like sometimes you just need to bullet to the head and just make it quick, fast, and instead of coaching or coaching up or coaching out, sometimes you do have to make those decisions to be like, get off the ship right now, like dive off the board of the ship. Because like literally I'm thinking of a very specific instance where we had an employee that had like poor integrity issues that was impacting not only our customers, um, but our teammates and myself, right? And we made that 5 minute of pain decision immediately, because I'm like, I can't have people that do this, because I've seen, if I've historically, when I've taken my time to remove somebody that is really disruptive to our team and our customers and our core values, like we feel those effects of that poor uh, culture or core values for like 6 months to a year post, if I leave them in long enough, right? So you do want to assess it very quickly and make it like be decisive and say, look, does this person fit our core values, and are they doing what we need? Or do we just need to get rid of them and find somebody who can do what we need, right? And it's okay. And I know it's scary. I remember the first time I ever had to do it, and it was scary. And that's okay to have those feelings of fear, but be decisive and say, look, let's just get rid of this person and find somebody who actually fits what we're trying to do here. So that, because you guys, you spend so much time with these people every day of your life, more than your family in most cases, right? So it's like, do you really want to deal with people that that have low values? It's like, no, that's a waste of time and energy for us all, so I'm a huge fan of this type of leadership, these books, everything from EOS to the Ideal Team Player. Justin, I know you're coming up on time. What, any last thoughts or comments to our audience on how they can be better leaders and use these tools?
I mean, I did have a thought. If dentists and these dental practices are uh, their goal is to help patients with restorative care, with uh, healing the patient, healing body, helping them, right? It's just as important as an organization, as a business, to take a look inside of that organization and ensure that it's healthy too,
Yeah.
because it matters. Like if everyone is if the organization is healthy that way, it's going to be good for everyone in the organization, and it's also going to be great for the patients because they're going to get the care they need, and they're going to come into an environment that's healthy. And that's probably the most important thing that I've learned over the 5.5 years that I've been COO here, is ensuring that good people are within these walls and that they are doing what we need them to do. So
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. Dan, any last thoughts from you?
No, just appreciate you, Justin. I love your insight, love your expertise. It's been super fun to chat and get some of your kind of insider takes on stuff, and just really appreciate uh, everything you brought to the table today. Thank you.
you're welcome. Appreciate it. I love talking about it. So call me anytime.
We'll do more. We'll do more then.
Yeah, Justin's on LinkedIn and Facebook, all the social media. So go find him. Justin Comstock, same last name as me. And if you can't find him, you can find my LinkedIn profile, and I'll tell you where to find him.
Yeah.
With the longer beard. That's all
Yeah.
you need.
The longer
Yeah.
beard, and then you raise your left eyebrow, and Jordan raises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just watch for
Real
those.
easy to tell you apart now.
Subtle differences. Yeah. No, Just, thanks for coming on the show today. Always appreciate your insight on this topic. It's a fun one. And Dan, as usual, pleasure hanging out with you today.
Heck yeah.
So with that said, all of our listeners, we hope you guys have a rocking day.